Hello and welcome to the first totally live edition of Currently in Quincy since March 23rd of 2020. We're really pleased to be back with you live every Monday and Friday at 11:30. We're also very pleased to welcome as our first guest on our first live show this year, Quincy Mayor Thomas Koch will be joining us shortly. First, though, we check out the weather and the news for you. Currently in Quincy, it is hazy, hot, and humid, already 89 degrees, not stopping there. There is a heat advisory in effect through at least Wednesday. Temperatures today in the mid-90s, the feels-like temperature with the humidity closer to 100 degrees. Very sultry night coming up tonight, hazy with lows only in the mid-70s, maybe a tad hotter tomorrow if it's possible, with a high 96. Excessive heat warning continues. Still pretty toasty here on Wednesday. Could be the transition day with some afternoon thunderstorms. Still very hot Wednesday and oppressively humid with highs in the mid-90s. A bit of a break here on the first day of July, which would be Thursday, maybe a spot storm. Highs Thursday only in the mid-80s. Right now, hazy and 89 degrees in Quincy. In the news today, Quincy City Council has gone on record opposing a proposal on Beacon Hill that would allow the state's House and Senate districts to be redrawn before cities and towns can redraw their precinct lines. Ward 4 City Councilor Brian Palmucci co-sponsored a resolution saying local officials know their voting precincts best.
The last redistricting 10 years ago, I recall there was an issue with a particular apartment building, a senior housing building in Ward 4 that was getting redistricted out, whereas it's the Bauer House. They vote at the Lincoln Hancock across the street. They were being redistricted out where they would have to vote somewhere else, not across the street. And the folks spoke up. They sent all of us, all the members of the council at the time, emails, letters. They called, and we ended up working with Clerk Joe Shea, and he redrew the lines because that didn't make a lot of sense, right? So there's a human element here that we understand a lot better at the local level than what I expect the full legislative bodies up at Beacon Hill to understand. So I just wanted to add that and thank Councilor Family for pointing out that the state will still retain authority over our decisions to approve them or not.
State officials say they are being forced to redraw the districts now because of a delay in the results of last year's federal census. Data are not expected to be released until the end of September. Quincy City Clerk Nicole Crispo agreed that her office is best suited to set up the new precincts, says she's received no guidance from the state on the new voting districts. A plan to have the city of Quincy take over the Furnace Brook Golf Course has been delayed until September, at least. The city council last week cut $400,000 from the budget that was requested to operate the golf course for the first 6 months of next year. A councilor said they wanted to hold neighborhood meetings about the plans for the golf course before moving ahead with that proposal. Mayoral spokesman Chris Walker felt that that was an appropriate move.
As Commissioner Murphy mentioned, this is not a time-sensitive issue in our minds. If it's the body's wish to break out the golf course operational costs for presentation in the fall, I think that's doable from our perspective. I guess, and I don't want to get into the business of the body to any great extent. It's not my role, but it may make sense just to save everyone the time and energy there's some talk about bringing Commissioner Murphy back tomorrow night. I think if the body
whatever works, Mr. Walker, I understand. Whatever works.
Makes a recommendation to cut the budget.
Golf course lease expires at the end of 2021, so councilors said they could also add that money back into the budget later this year if it's determined that that's the city's direction. The total operating budget for the golf course would be about $800,000 per year. Quincy City Council unanimously opposed to a plan by the city to build a footbridge to Pine Island in Blacks Creek. Officials last week supported a resolution introduced by Ward 5 Councilor Chuck Phelan, who said the proposed boardwalk serves no useful purpose.
Is not something good. to happen, and it will do irreparable damage to the salt marsh. And I wanted to go on record, and I thank all the other councils for joining on this, to be in opposition to this, to say that we don't want this to happen. I don't think it does anything good for people. There also could be problems where if the bridge is opened, you put a big gate on it so people don't get out there. You're giving a very easy way for kids to be going out there when now they can't get out there when the tides are right. When the tide gates are working properly, you can't get out there because if the marsh is flooded, you can't get there. When the tide gates are off, they are down, then it's a very low tide and you can't get out there. But I just wanted to be recorded and put my name in opposition to this, and I thank all the other councils for joining on. And I would request a vote on this tonight. I would also request that it be put in the Park and Rec Committee, so in case in the future it needs.
Conservation Commission recently delayed taking any action on the boardwalk proposal given the local opposition to the plan. They may meet on it again next month. Well, the first of 3 phases of a new residential development at the North Quincy T Station is complete. Last week, Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito, and Quincy Mayor Thomas Koch cut the ribbon, officially opening the first of 3 new buildings in a development called The Abbey. The governor said the project will help alleviate the housing shortage in the greater Boston area.
Both the Lieutenant Governor and I attended the groundbreaking here, and this was a very much a 4-bank shot that involved the City of Quincy, the MBTA, the Department of Transportation, and associated other entities locally to pull this off and put it together. But it's a 600-unit transit-oriented development at its core, and it comes with a significant investment in the Affordable Housing Trust to the City of Quincy, and will provide a significant opportunity for people to live in this beautiful development, to be near the great community of Quincy, and to be a very short ride on the Red Line from the City of Boston. And as we continue to make hundreds of millions of dollars, probably billions at this point, of investments in the modernization of the Red Line to go along with a number of projects like this, this is all part of building a better, stronger Commonwealth, and especially working on building housing across Massachusetts. We filed a pretty significant piece of legislation to put about $1 billion of federal ARPA money into housing. Massachusetts, as we all know, does not have enough housing of any kind, and that has huge consequences on what people pay for the housing we do have. We need to build more, and we especially need to build more in eastern Massachusetts. And I look forward to seeing parts 2 and part 3 of this go up so that we can come back and celebrate that. But mostly, I just want to say thanks to the mayor, and especially to the development and construction team for seeing this through the pandemic and getting us to this point in time. There's lots more good work to be done here, and we look forward to that as well. Thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor.
First phase of the Abbey includes 218 apartments, 73% of which are already leased. Phase 2, with 137 apartments, will open this September. The third and final phase, with 255 apartments, is set for completion in the fall of 2022. Coming up, Quincy Mayor Thomas Koch joins us. That's next. Welcome back, and we're really happy to welcome back to the program Quincy Mayor Thomas Koch, because, Mr. Mayor, you were actually the last live guest on the last live show of 2020 with you and the then superintendent, Rick DeCristofaro.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gee.
And
it's been quite a year.
It's been quite a year indeed. So really, thank you so much for coming back and helping
my pleasure.
us to get
It was a long commute, but I made it all right.
get our live show back up and running. It's a pleasure to have you here. And now a lot has changed. Of course, superintendent is now the president of Quincy College.
Yes, indeed.
And also that same week, we had the then health commissioner, Ruth Jones, on the show. She has since retired with a new commissioner on board, so a lot's happened in a year.
Indeed, indeed. The only constant in life is change.
It's
right?
true. It's true. There was this little thing called a pandemic. You probably
Yeah,
heard about it.
yeah. that did foul things up a bit, didn't it? Huh? The first, I don't know, it seemed to me like into March, the air had kind of dragged in some ways, but once April hit, all of a sudden it just, flying by again.
Yeah, well-
back on the treadmill,
In fact, you had COVID yourself.
did, yeah, back
What
in
was that
January.
experience
It's
like?
Well, it was, the fatigue was incredible. I
Really?
never experienced anything like that. I had a cough, my oxygen levels were dropping. I was in touch with my doctor by phone. He told me what to watch for. If my oxygen levels dropped to a certain point, which they did, and I had trouble breathing, but I didn't have that issue,
Okay.
thankfully.
All right.
And then it was just, it took time, but we get through it fine.
Yeah.
We get through it fine. I'm grateful, certainly.
How is the city doing, do you think? I hate to say post-pandemic, but
No, I know it. I know it.
waning pandemic.
We want
how's
to say
it?
that, though,
Yeah,
right? I think overall, it's been obviously a year that was unique to everybody. It's a bunch of firsts, right? There was no playbook for this, but I tell you, looking back, and I don't say this in an arrogant way, but I don't think I'd do much different.
Mm-hmm.
We really took it a day at a time, made decisions a day at a time, worked very closely, obviously, with the health entities in our community, particularly Manet Health, who stepped up to do an incredible job with the testing and the vaccines. But all the departments, everyone made the adjustments necessary. They never stopped working.
It's true.
So it's been quite a year for the history books, and I'm certainly hopeful it is post-pandemic.
I know. Are there any plans in the future for the city to commemorate or honor the folks that we lost?
Yeah, we're having some of those discussions now.
Yeah.
Commissioner David Murphy from Natural Resources was talking to me a little bit about that. So that's something we're going to take a look at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think 155, 156 deaths in the city. something
Yes.
like that,
No.
yeah.
No. Some of them, and not to demean or
Certainly.
diminish any of them, but
Yeah.
some of them would have been nursing home patients that might not have been Quincy people, but been in the nursing
Okay.
home. But regardless, obviously, that's a lot of people.
Sure.
That affects a lot of families.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. And there was some great community people that I knew that we lost during this pandemic. Steve DeRoche comes to mind.
I know.
What a guy he was. So involved in the community.
Yeah.
In so many ways. But thank God we're going the other direction, and let's get this behind us.
Yeah. So are city operations back to quote unquote the way they were?
Yeah, I mean, there's still some adjustments. The senior center has been opening up
Right.
gradually,
Yep.
for example. The libraries, we've been doing a ton of work to the libraries physically while they were closed, and
Yes.
now those are ramping back up again
Okay.
for people to come and enjoy. And as you know, people have still been availing themselves to the materials of the library.
Oh, yeah.
Megan Allen, her team did a great job. And that's my point. All the departments adjusted. In some ways, some departments get busier. Park and Rec, for example, the pressure on the park and recreation spaces grew dramatically because people were just looking for an escape to get out and get
Absolutely.
the fresh air. So, but everybody, police, fire, and nobody missed a beat. And so I'm so proud of our department heads, our managers, our employees right across the board. In schools, we're one of the first districts to be back in a hybrid. Really, I don't know that I don't know that I'd do anything different.
Right,
Going back
yeah.
looking at it,
Is the plan full in-person learning now in the fall?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mask, no mask, has that been determined yet?
I don't think so. I mean, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, the Department of Education and the Commission will make those decisions to the districts with recommendations. But I got to believe if we continue on the path we're on, there'll be no masks and be back to normal.
Great. Knocking on all kinds of wood right now.
Absolutely.
We talk a little bit about the pandemic relief money that was announced for the city. I think $46 million from the American Rescue Plan.
Yes.
Did you get the check yet?
The art money? No. It's coming in 2 allotments, so
Okay.
we'll get half of it this year and half
Oh, I
of it
see.
next year.
Okay.
Is what we've been told, and it's been an interesting experience through all of this,
Really?
and it's very bureaucratic, but it at the end of the day, this is going to be very, very helpful to the city of Quincy moving forward. It obviously is assisting us with some of the shortfalls in the revenue areas,
Yep.
but also allows us to do some other things that we probably wouldn't be able to do.
Such as?
Such as some of the decisions we made, for example, buying the building at Monroe. I had proposed maybe a college building there. The council wasn't quite there yet, so we made a decision to purchase the building, and it fits under the guidelines. It'd be for educational purpose, tourism purposes. It's a main piece of property right on the Quincy Center MBTA station. It has such an impact on what we're going to do on development-wise in this part of the square. I just think it's, what made us so successful in getting the downtown moving is we own two big parcels in Quincy Center, the Hancock lot and the old Ross lot.
Right.
That's what made it doable, really. If we had to rely on all private owners to step up, it wouldn't have happened. Well, I view the Monroe Building a crucial piece of property in the northern part of the Quincy Center district. Again, right by the T. It's still our hope that it'll have some kind of a college educational use, perhaps some city hall use, perhaps some tourism use, perhaps the park service will be involved. There's all kinds of possibilities there. Some of those same councils which are critical of everything I do, if somebody come in and propose a 10 or 15 story apartment building, they'd have been complaining about that as well. I'd rather see this more of a commercial use, educational use, and that's what we'll. And the reality is, if that doesn't come to be, the city could always unload the property to the right developer for the right purposes. But I think it was too important. So that's one of those special things we could do that we didn't need a city appropriation for.
Has that purchase happened? Is the city purchasing?
It's in the process.
It's in the process. Okay.
As we speak.
It kind of begs the question. We just saw the governor talk about the development up at North Quincy. Last week we saw the 3 huge developments coming Quincy Center. What about Wollaston?
We're working on that.
Yeah.
Big time. I mean, there's zoning proposals before the city council as we speak.
Okay.
I have met with a number of landowners, Dim Wollaston. I'm working with a developer now. Actually, 2 developers as we sit here on some potential projects. So
really,
it's going to happen. It's going to happen quickly.
At the Wally, people are always asking, well, what's going to happen where the Wally used to be?
Yeah, I mean that has had an owner for some time that had proposed a certain residential building, which wasn't well received initially.
Right.
I think he's gone back to the drawing board and making adjustments. But there's a number of other parcels in that area that developers and landowners are coming forward with some proposals on.
Okay.
Some of them we're waiting a little bit on the new overlay district, which is before the city council as we speak,
Right.
which should incentivize some of this development for Wollaston Center. But it is time, absolutely.
Yeah. Quincy Center T Station, that kind of got put on the back burner also. Where does that stand right now?
That's I'll be meeting with the general manager of the MBTA in the very near future.
Oh, okay.
We'll be talking about that. As you know, they designated a developer, which was Bizzuto and Atlantic Development, the same team doing North Quincy. And the city is very involved in all of that because we have control over the air rights, and that's all air rights on the Quincy Center proposal. So we'll continue to work with the T. The reality is when the T designated the developer, there was not a lot of thought in what to do with the station itself. And then they realized the station needs a lot of work. So they took a step back, trying to figure out, okay, is it $100 million? What do we need to do to that station to make it more attractive, more accessible? It's not a pretty station. And
They had to tear down the parking garage. It was so bad.
Yeah, it was condemned. The garage was condemned for a number of years, so we're glad of that. We'll continue to work with the T, the developer, and come up with something that we can all be proud of.
Can we talk a bit about the budget process that just concluded, and a couple of concerns raised, as you're well aware. One, the issue of transparency. Do you feel that was a legitimate concern?
I don't. I don't know what they mean by that.
Okay.
I mean, the process is every year we go through this. And by the way, it's not like we're starting from zero the next year. Essentially, it's the same budget with some tweaks. And every year we go through this process. So I'm an open book. I'm not sure what the issue of transparency is. I think that's an overused term, quite frankly, in public life today. But we have an open book. And what's interesting to me is I very, very seldom hear from the councilors. At times I reach out to them with priorities that I have to talk about. But the phone rings both ways. And if there's ever any question on anything, not only to me, but my entire team, department heads, they're available at any time to answer any questions. I'm not much of a believer concern that transparency is an issue.
The pension bond obligation did get approved after much discussion and debate. What does that do for the city?
That's a game changer, Joe.
Really?
To me, why it took so hard to get the 6 votes is mind-boggling to me, and why the 3 voted against, which is their prerogative, is mind-boggling to me. This was not a political issue. This was not a major policy issue. This was math. This is looking at our outstanding unfunded liability, which is there, and under the law we have to pay. And here is an innovative way to deal with that by bringing on the debt. And it works because of the low interest rates. It's much like someone in their house, they've owned the house for 15 years, they had debt, maybe credit card debt, maybe their car loan. The interest rates dropped, so they restructure and refinance the house, and now they're paying less every month. The obligation was there, but now they pay less to meet that obligation. It's the same idea. I'm not sure why it had to be so hard, but this is a game changer. We get a bill every year from the retirement board. That's the law. So all public employees, they pay into the retirement system, and the city matches a certain amount. The bill would have gone up to $36 million, increase of $4 million July 1st.
Okay.
And every year going forward through 2037, under the schedule, it would have gone up dramatically to meet the unfunded portion. We decided to hit it head on. Let's bond it. Let's take advantage of these historic low interest rates, and now we save millions of dollars each and every year from what we would have been paying. So it's a game changer.
What can that savings be used for? Where can
It helps generally with the budget. So depending on the priorities the mayor and the council has,
Yep.
It certainly helps put a little bit of relief towards the taxes in the fall, because if we didn't have this change, the increase would have been more dramatic. Therefore, we would have been looking at a heavier tax increase in the fall. As you know, we have major excess levy capacity. We don't tax to the max. And I know that doesn't go over well with people, but the reality is there's only 3 communities in Massachusetts out of 351 that have more excess levy capacity than we do. That's, I think, is something we should be proud of.
I know you had said earlier you're maybe anticipating a moderate or slight tax increase. That's still...
Yes, light to moderate. We're watching all the revenue sources, and everything is bouncing back pretty well. So that certainly is a good thing going forward. And then we'll see how everything else comes in. But yeah, I don't see it as a big spike increase. And we talked about years ago trying to make them manageable. Look, at the end of the day, local government depends highly on the residential and commercial taxes. It's really what drives our budget. I think 75% of our budget comes from the real estate taxes. And most communities are very similar. So every year, every community goes up under 2.5%, a certain percentage, to meet their budget obligations. Right. There's other aid that comes in, there's state aid, there's local receipts like excise tax and things that all add up to make the budget. But every year, cities and towns do it. And the cities and towns around us, all the towns around us, are at the max. We're not at the max. I'm proud of that.
Another issue that came up was the proposed Department of Equity and Social Justice. Your spokesman last week said that there's a commission about to be named, and then the first meeting later on in July. So where does that stand right now?
Yes, we should be announcing all the names on the commission this week.
Okay.
So that should be taken care of this week, and then we'll begin the process of how many meetings, what the schedule will be, who will chair it. I'll attend the first meeting and give them my thoughts and give them kind of the charge, know, and then they take it from there. My guess is they'll interview department heads and what departments are doing in these times to meet some of the challenges that we face. So I think it'll be a good exercise, and we'll see what comes out of it. I have no preconceived notion of what they're going to say or what they're going to suggest or challenge me with, but I think it's a good exercise for the city to go through.
The initial hope was maybe to get a report in the fall. Is that still the thought?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So
Indeed.
You can't announce it here on this program, Mayor. Breaking news. How many will there be on the commission?
I think it's 9.
Okay.
Pretty sure it's 9.
Good cross section.
It is a good cross section. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. The issue of Pine Island, Mayor. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Wow. Gee.
It's gotten very passionate.
It sure has. Yeah, and I think, and I owe the residents down there a little bit of an apology, because this kind of got ahead of us. We had started a master plan for Marymount Park a couple of years ago, and included in that really tying in the Quincy Shore Reservation with Marymount Park.
Yep.
For example, you come off of Quincy Shore Drive, you come down Furnace-Brook Parkway, you've got to cross the street along the houses to walk, really.
Right.
The idea was for people not to have to cross the street. You develop trails through the woods down in Furnace Brook, bring them into Marymount Park. The thought was a footbridge to Pine Island, and by the way, I guess there was one there 50 years ago, or a little longer. And then maybe a boardwalk on the other side to connect to the Grossman Park back out to Caddy Park and that whole area.
Yep.
To give people other options for walking and biking. We have seen during this pandemic the great stress is put on natural resources and our open spaces. And it's such a beautiful location. You're in the middle of the city, but when you're in that area, you don't feel like you're in the city at all. So certainly we're going to pull back. I respect the wishes of some of the neighbors and Councilor Phelan's leadership on this, the concern about it. We'll pull back on it now. We revisit the whole park with some community meetings down the road, and we'll see what happens. But this doesn't have to be something to be done tomorrow anyway. But again, I think it got a little, in the process, it got a little ahead of us.
Right. Okay.
As you said before we went on, there's so much going on.
So much going on, including Major League Rugby coming to Veterans Memorial Stadium. Who knew?
Who knew?
The New England Free Jacks are going to call the Veterans Stadium their new home.
Yes, this is an offshoot of what happened with the lacrosse.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
you know, it's all good stuff.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's another great sport. Tough sport.
Yeah. I'll just be a spectator. Thank you. Really appreciate your time, Mayor.
My pleasure, Joe.
Great to have you. Will you come back?
Absolutely.
Great.
Anytime.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you for watching. Thanks to our crew as well. And this coming Friday, we will get some water safety tips from the director of the aquatics program at the South Shore YMCA. Ken Berardi will be here in studio. Very important topic given what's been happening so far with swimming accidents this summer. We hope to see you then. Until then, I'm Joe Catalano. Please stay safe.